Welcome students. Today we have see the textures of igneous rock. From the last lecture we have see the textures of igneous rock. In the last lecture we have see the textures of crystallinity, textures of granularity and textures of shape of the mineral grains. Today the next point in which the textures of mutual relations of mineral grains. Now in this mineral grain texture relation there are two main types of textures, that is the equigranular texture and another is the inequigranular texture. In equigranular texture, those mineral grains which are equal in size, those grains which are equal in size, shape, that mineral grains are present within the rock mass. That texture is called as equigranular texture. This texture again divided into three types, that is the panidiomorphic, hypidiomorphic and allotriomorphic. The panidiomorphic texture is a texture in which all types of euhedral grains are present. Means look at this, such a type of grains, euhedral grains we have seen in the last lecture, those grains which are perfectly developed at the time of cooling of magmatic material. That is, such a type of perfect grained euhedral minerals are packed within the rock mass of igneous. Such a texture is called as a panidiomorphic texture. And next one is the hypidiomorphic texture. In this texture, at the time of formation of mineral grains, all the subhedral grains are packed. Means subhedral grains are embedded in a rock mass. That texture is called as a hypidiomorphic. Just like such a mineral grains, means partially developed mineral grains are formed within the mineral within the rock mass, is nothing but hypidiomorphic texture. And third one is the allotriomorphic texture, is the texture in which irregular shaped grains, means undeveloped minerals or undeveloped mass of igneous rock is embedded, is packed with the rock. This texture is called as allotriomorphic texture. These all the three textures are comes under equigranular texture. Means these grains or shape of the mineral is equidimensional. That mineral or that grains contains shape is equal in size and also in shape. Such minerals or such a texture is called as a equigranular texture. That texture contains three: panidiomorphic texture, hypidiomorphic texture and allotriomorphic texture. Now next point is that the inequigranular texture. Inequigranular texture contains, there are different types of mineral grains, means smaller grains as well as larger grains are packed within the rock mass at the time of crystallization of magmatic material. Such a texture is called as a inequigranular. That is the inequigranular texture. That texture is formed by the different temperature and pressure condition, in which there are different means such grains. One is large grain, one is the smaller grain, then another one is a large grain, medium grain. All type of grains are packed within the rock mass. This texture is called as a inequigranular texture. This texture again divided into three groups or three types, that is the porphyritic texture, poikilotic texture and ophitic texture. Porphyritic texture is the texture which is formed in two stages at the time of crystallization of magma. In the first stage, in the early stage, at the time of cooling of magmatic material, large crystals are formed at great depth. That large crystal is nothing but phenocryst, and at the on the near earth surface, that magmatic material cooling, these form a ground mass. At the time of cooling, that magmatic material is from the ground mass. That ground mass is nothing but matrix. Look like this. This texture is like this. Look at this is the diagrammatic view of the porphyry texture, in which large crystals, that is the phenocryst, are present with, this is the ground mass. This is the ground mass. This is the phenocryst. Phenocryst. And this is the ground mass, or it is also called as a matrix. This texture is formed in the two stages. In the early stage, form the phenocryst, and in the second stage, that is form the ground mass. Mostly such a type of texture is found in the volcanic rock as well as plutonic rock. Example of this rock is the porphyritic granite, as well as porphyritic rhyolite is the extrusive rock, and porphyritic granite is the intrusive rock. Now, next is the poikilotic texture. This type of texture is also a inequigranular texture, in which large crystals, that is the phenocryst, encloses the smaller grains. Means, look at it, this is the poikilotic texture also, but here large crystals are the phenocryst, but ground mass is embedded or enclosed within the mass of the larger crystals. Such a texture is called as a poikilotic texture. Look at this. Poikilotic texture is also similar to the porphyry texture, but in this texture, ground mass or the smaller grains are enclosed the phenocryst or larger grains. In larger grains, smaller grains are also present, but within the porphyry texture, the larger grains are separate and ground mass is separate. But in the poikilotic texture, these smaller grains are enclosed within the larger crystals. That's why it is called as a poikilotic texture. And third one is the ophitic texture. It is also a special type of poikilotic texture. It is also a special type of poikilotic texture, but in this texture, large crystals of augite are encloses the plagioclase laths. Means augite grains are larger. This is the augite grains. This is the augite grains. In that augite grains, smaller laths of plagioclase are enclosed. This type of texture is called as a ophitic texture. Now, for this texture, today's we have stopped here. Thank you.